Dear students, welcome to yet another online tutorial on principles of communication system. So we are into module 4 now, and in last video we have seen the very basics of digitization, the need for digitization, and I have even introduced you to the sampling process. Right. So in this particular video, right, we'll see in detail what actually is the sampling process, right, and the sampling theorem. It says what should be the ideal sampling rate so that an analog signal can be um, reliably represented using a sample, and that samples can reliably reconstruct the analog signal. For that aspect, what is the ideal sampling rate? So sampling theorem will deal with that. So the first topic which we have to see is the sampling theorem, right? You should be able to what state and prove sampling theorem, right? So before even we can do that, right, we should have some basics. You should be comfortable with some of the very basic prerequisites which you have already learned in signals and system, but I would like to what um, just recollect, I make you recollect all those aspects in this video, right? So in this video we'll see the statement of sampling theorem, and we'll just see how we can mathematically modeling the sampling process, right? Soon we'll see sampling process can be mathematically modeled in time domain as multiplication of the original analog signal with uh, uh, impulse train, right? So that we'll see. Then some of the prerequisites you should know, right? What is the Fourier transform, how to find the Fourier transform of a periodic signal, right? And also you should be comfortable with the properties, that is time shifting property and duality property of Fourier transform, so that you'll be able to appreciate the concept of all the aspects related to this sampling process. So we'll just recollect, right? In last video itself, I've introduced you to the sampling process. So what basically sampling process does is it's the first and foremost step in digitization, right, or analog to digital conversion, right? So an analog signal is initially sampled, then quantized, and then encoded to get actually what digital data. So the first step was sampling. So sampling, it converts a continuous time signal to a discrete time signal as indicated by this figure. So to get this, what we are doing is we'll be is instantaneously sampling the original signal every say ts seconds. So in our discussion, right, we will consider ts as sampling interval, capital T subscript s, that will be sampling interval, so that the signal is defined only during discrete time intervals, every right integer multiple of ts seconds. So this is what is sampling. After sampling, what we have to do is we have to quantize it. So after quantization makes the amplitude domain as well discrete. So even though we have instantaneously taken samples at every ts seconds, this amplitude level can be anything. That particular sample can take any value between minimum and maximum voltage swings. So this quantization, what it does is it converts it into what discrete level of amplitude. So for instance, if you are considering a 3-bit uh, analog to digital converter, right, what it does is it will divide the voltage swing, that is minimum to maximum, into 2 power 3 equal to 8 different levels. So in this case, right, maybe it's just an example, right? The lower level can be what, all zeros, and the next level 0 0 1, so on and so forth. The last level will be 1 1 1. So if instantaneous value of sample is falling between any of these intervals, right, what a quantizer does is it will either truncate or round off to any of these finite levels, right? That's what is quantization. So quantization you'll study in next module, right? So we'll concentrate more on the sampling aspects, right? So in first case we'll be seeing ideal sampling, right? So right, before even actually what proving or delving into the mathematical aspects of sampling theorem, I'll just give you an idea what is that you have to prove, what analysis, what sort of analysis you have to do, right? I told, when you're sampling, why we are sampling, we have to what, we should be able to reliably represent this analog signal as a digital data, right? See, most of the right, natural signals or physical signals like voice, right, or any sensor data, all those are actually what analog signals, right? So when it is converted to digital, it should be able to reliably represent that whatever information was there in analog signal. So for that, right, we should see what should be the ideal sampling interval, right? So that's what is given by our sampling theorem. So maybe I'll initially start by giving you the statement of sampling theorem. Then we'll try to what see the details. This is what the sampling theorem is. What you have to verify or prove, right? So we'll be speaking about sampling of baseband sampling theorem, right? The ideal baseband sampling. This is what we are going to see, right? So this sampling for this, right, we'll be considering, right, a signal, right? So that signal, the assumption is it's finite energy signal. So please do keep this in mind, right? The signal is a finite energy signal, and as we are dealing with baseband sampling, right, the signal is band limited to, right, signal is band limited to FM hertz or W hertz, right? So we'll use band limited to W hertz, which means if you consider spectrum of the signal, it will be like something like this. So this is just an arbitrary spectrum which I have considered. It need not always be actually what triangular shape, right? So it will have frequency contents from minus W to plus W. So we are considering a finite energy band limited signal which has maximum frequency content W, or in you can even use actually what FM, right? FM is maximum frequency content. Anything would be fine. So as our textbook has used a notation W, I'll be using the notation W itself, right? Normally, right, the is if you ask someone what a sampling theorem, like straight away people will be tell FS should be greater than or equal to 2 FM. That is, the sampling frequency or sampling rate should be greater than or equal to twice the maximum frequency content of the message signal or the signal which is to be sampled. That is, right, a sampling theorem in a nutshell, right? But when you are writing it as a statement, right, so you should be right, a band limited signal of finite energy. Maybe I'll just write down band limited signal of finite energy, right, which I should be band limited signal. It has a finite energy, and we should define what is the maximum frequency component in that. So we can write which only has maximum frequency component, which only has maximum frequency component less than W hertz, right? Less than W hertz. So here I am using W. You can even use FM. It's not a problem, right? Anything would be fine. Max less than W hertz is completely described by um specifying the values of the signal, right? Described by specifying the values of the signal at instance of time, at instances of time separated, or instance of time separated 1 by 2 W seconds apart or lesser, right? Instance of time separated by 1 by 2 W seconds right? So this is the first case, that is a signal if the sampling, if the samples are separated at most maximum by 1 by 2 w second, right, it can completely describe a analog signal. So it is actually what it means: sampling frequency should be greater than or equal to 1 by 2 w, or in other words, sampling time, right, sampling, sorry, one second, this sampling time, right. So it means the sampling time should be less than or equal to 1 by 2 w, or the sampling frequency should be greater than or equal to 2w. So this is the essence of first statement. So if a signal has to be reliably, completely described by its samples, the sampling time should be less than or equal to 1 by 2w, or sampling frequency should be greater than 2w. That is the first statement. And the second statement, it's actually what one and the same. So now we have, once we represent it as samples, right, and we are transmitting at the receiver, and we should be able to reconstruct the analog signal, original analog signal, from the sample, right. So second statement is about, right, in which condition we'll be able to what, reconstruct it, right. That is the next condition. Right. The next condition says a band limited signal of finite energy. I'll again write a band limited signal of finite energy. A band limited signal of finite energy. Right. Again, which only has uh, frequency components less than W hertz, which, right, FM is less than or equal to W hertz, which only has frequency content less than or equal to W hertz. Right, may be completely recovered from the known samples if its samples are taken at a rate of 2 W samples per second. That is, maybe, right, maybe completely recovered from the known samples if the if the samples are taken at a rate of 2 W samples per second. If the samples are taken at 2 W samples per second, it's again the same. So in first case we told it can completely describe, samples can completely describe an analog signal if the samples are taken, right, at intervals less than or equal to 1 by 2 W, or sample rate is greater than or equal to 2 W, right. And in second aspect of sampling theorem, it says it can be, by knowing the samples, a signal can be reliably reconstructed if the samples are taken at 2 W samples per second or more, right. Again, so the essence is Fs should be greater than or equal to 2 W, right. Fs should be greater than or equal to 2 W. That is where Fs is sampling frequency, right. Fs is sampling rate or sampling frequency, which means number of samples per second, right. Number of samples per second should be numerically equal to or greater than twice the maximum frequency content in the um, message signal. That is actually what the sampling theorem. This is what we have to prove. So before even, like, it's actually what, very simple, right? Fs is greater than or equal to 2W, but we have to prove this. So to prove this, right, we should see what will happen if we take the samples very close to each other, right? If Fs is much greater compared to 2W, or the sampling interval is actually what much less compared to the Nyquist sampling interval, right? What will happen? What will happen when Fs is equal to 2W? That is actually what ideal or Nyquist sampling will tell. And what will happen if the spacing between samples is too large, or Fs is much less compared to 2W? So those things we have to analyze, right? And we should say a signal can be reliably reconstructed from its known sample only when Fs is greater than or equal to 2W. That is the proof which we have to do, right? So before that, we'll see what is the mathematical, right? How can we mathematically model the sampling process? Mathematical model of sampling process, right? So I'll consider a signal, right? A finite energy signal, right? A part of it, so which is defined for all time, and I'm considering a part of it, right? And if you consider spectrum of the signal, it will be something like this. It will be band limited to W hertz, right? Now when I am sampling it, right, what I'll get is I'll be taking samples at every, say, ts seconds, right? At every ts seconds I'll be taking samples, right? So this is how I'll, so right, so this is, say, 0 ts, 2 ts, etc., right? So at every nts will be taking instantaneous sample. So this is the sampling process, right? So the sampling process can be considered as, if I call the signal as actually what g of t, and the sampled signal as g delta of t. So there is a reason why I have given this delta subscript, g subscript delta of t, right? So then the sampling process mathematically can be found as, right, so it's the product between g of t and an impulse train, an impulse train, right, at ts seconds, right? Which means an impulse train in which impulses are separated, individual impulses are separated ts seconds. So I'll just draw that, right? So, right, this is, so this is 0 ts, 2 ts, etc. This is minus ts, minus 2 ts. So this I can represent as summation, say, m from minus infinity to infinity del of t minus mts, right? So del of t, it is an impulse, right? So del of t minus something is actually what, del of t shifted right by that amount, what was defined by that, actually what, this value, right? Del of t plus something will be del of t shifted left, right? So if you add everything, so m from this is actually, this is how you can represent an impulse train, right? So this g delta of t can be obtained by multiplying g of t with this impulse train. So then we'll get g delta of t. So we can write this g delta of t. So what happens is, this impulse train is defined only at the time instances nts, right, where n can be from minus infinity to infinity, right? So whole numbers between minus infinity and infinity, right? So what will happen if you multiply this message signal and this impulse train, right? So in between these, actually between this minus ts and 0, 0 ts, ts and 2 ts, we won't have anything. It will be 0. So only at this particular instance, what will happen, the instantaneous value of signal will be multiplying the impulse. So when I say you are multiplying impulse with something, right, I should define that, what actually is it. So before that, I'll just write, so we can represent it as actually what, summation m from minus infinity to infinity, or else you can write n from minus infinity to infinity, whatever it is, fine. So maybe I'll use n from minus infinity to infinity, right? G of n ts multiplied with del of t minus n ts. So if you substitute the value of n is equal to 0, it will be g of 0 times del of t. That is, g of 0 is actually what, the instantaneous value of g of t at time t equal to 0, right? So then g of nts will be instantaneous value of g of t at time t equal to n times ts. So that is what, so what we are basically doing is we are multiplying an impulse, right? An impulse with some scalar value, some constant, right? Which is the value of a signal at any given particular time. So I should define what is meant by multiplying an impulse with a signal, right? So if you consider an impulse, right? So impulse normally will show like this. It's like its thickness is almost negligible, and height we will say it is equal to infinity. So that if you find area under an impulse, that is if you integrate from minus infinity to infinity del of t dt, this area under this should be equal to 1, which means area is nothing but what, length into breadth, right? So if you can imagine this impulse function as a small rectangular pulse, right? As a small rectangular pulse with width delta t, then you can imagine its height to be equal to what, 1 by delta t, so that the area under this will be equal to delta t into 1 by delta t, that will be equal to unity. So when I say I am multiplying an impulse with some scalar, right, or some value, what happens is it's actually manipulating the area of this particular impulse. So what will happen if you multiply, so the area is 1, so when you multiply it with g of nts, what will happen when you multiply 1 with anything, right? It will become whatever be that anything, right? So that's what, so this area will become actually what, g of nts, area will become g of nts. So what will happen, we can assume it is actually what, when you multiply an impulse with g of nts, right, it will multiply the height. We'll assume this width, it is remaining constant, so area is changing. When width is kept constant, what should happen, the height should change, right? So the height will become 1 by delta t into g of n ts. So this area is what, changing, right? So in fact, if you ask me what is the value of del of t at time t equal to 0, I can't define it. I should say it is infinity. But what I know is area under the impulse function will be equal to 1. So when I say, right, in mathematical modeling, I'm telling you are multiplying it with an impulse train, right, where each component of an impulse train is weighed by some factor, so that weighing happens to area. So I should define that initially itself. That's why I told this, right? So now this is how you can mathematically model. So g delta of t will be equal to g of nts times del of t minus nts. Del of t minus nts is nothing but what, this impulse train. And when you multiply with g of t, as del of t minus nts is defined only for discrete time intervals at every integer multiples of ts for positive and negative values, right? So this is how we can mathematically model the sampling process. Now if you have to prove the sampling theorem, or if you have to verify the sampling theorem, right? So from this, can we do anything? What information are we getting? We are not getting any information as such, right? So we should find the spectrum of this, right? We should find the spectrum of this. So interestingly, right, if spectrum of g of t is like this, right, we will see soon, right, the spectrum of the sample signal will be actually what, periodic replicas of this g so spectrum of g of t is g of f, right? So the spectrum of the sample signal will be actually what, periodic replicas of this. So that is, there will be this g of f will be what, replicated at every fs, right? That is every 1 by ts seconds, where sampling rate is equal to actually what, 1 by ts. So this is how the spectrum of g delta of f, that is g delta of t, will look like, right? So this is what we have to. So then how can we reconstruct it? How can we reconstruct it? So this is 0, this is fs. So this is actually what, spectrum, this, if you consider only for this time interval, this is equal to what, g of f, that is spectrum of our original signal. So if you can pass it through a low pass filter, if you can pass the sampled signal through a reconstruction filter or a low pass filter, right, you will be able to get back the original signal. That is the idea. So if you pass right, the sampled values through a reconstruction filter, right. So this is the time domain expression. The frequency domain, I told it will be something like this, right, where periodic replicas of GFF. So we are interested in this particular part which I have put in box. To get that, what we can do is you can just pass it through an ideal low pass filter which will allow frequencies minus W2 plus W. So that is what is reconstruction. So if this reconstruction should happen reliably, right, these individual replicas should not overlap. If they are overlapping, then you can't reconstruct the GFF alone, right. So that is the basic idea. So I'm just giving you an overall picture, right. Please don't feel like tensed or disheartened if you're not able to follow this. I'm just giving you an overall. This is what finally we have to prove. So if you have to do that, right, you should be comfortable with some of the very basic aspects of Fourier transform. So that's what we'll be discussing today. So initially itself, actually, what we'll some very basic two properties I'll tell, right. So for example, so we'll discuss prerequisites, right. We'll discuss the prerequisites. The first one is actually what time shifting property. You all may be knowing it, but you can just recollect, right. First one is time shifting property of Fourier transform. So if a signal x of t is a Fourier transform pair with capital X of f. If you take Fourier transform of x of t, you will get a capital X of f, and if you take inverse Fourier transform of x of f, you will get x of t. Right. Then the time shifting property says, right, x of the Fourier transform of x of t minus t naught. So this t naught is some constant, right? A time shift, right? A time shifted by an amount t naught, right? So then the Fourier transform of x of t minus t naught, you may be knowing this. This is equal to, right, x of f into e power minus j 2 pi f t naught, right. E power minus j 2 pi f t naught. This is actually what time shifting property. It's very simple, right. What will happen if you delay or advance a signal, right. It's simply a phase shift, right. It won't change any other aspect. It's only a phase shift, right. So that's why this x of f is as such that it's a complex number. If you're multiplying a complex number with e power j something, right, it's right, the magnitude is unaffected, only the phase is changing. So it represents a phase shift. That is the like in meaning of this whatever math I have written here, right. So that is first property, time shifting property. And second property, so for example, right, maybe, okay, we know the Fourier transform of 1. So if I have a signal, DC signal, right, that is 1, its Fourier transform is del of f. You know that, right. Fourier transform of 1 is say del of f, or other way around we'll take, right. If you take del of t, right, impulse del of t, its Fourier transform will be equal to what? 1. What is the meaning of that? Del of t, right, it's an impulse function, right. So it has all frequency components, right. So if it has all frequency components, right, in equal amount, right. So the Fourier transform of del of t is um, say this is 1, right. This is say del of f, sorry, it's x of t is del of t, right. Then this is x of f is 1. So then what will be Fourier transform of del of t minus t naught? Del of t minus t naught is nothing but what? Del of t shifted right by an amount t naught, right. So what will be Fourier transform of this? Its Fourier transform will be the magnitude spectrum will remain the same, it won't change, right. But the phase will be actually what? Phase spectrum will be e power minus j 2 pi f t naught. So the Fourier transform of del of t is 1. So then Fourier transform of del of t minus t naught will be equal to e power minus j 2 pi f t naught. So this is a typical application of this time shifting property, right. So so second one is we should be comfortable with the aspect of duality, right? So duality is right. So again, if you say the g of t or x of t, its Fourier transform pair with capital G of f, right? Then, so what do you mean by G of t? It's a function of time. That's it, right? It will be a function of time. It can be anything. It can be sine t or 1/1 plus t square or anything, anything. And G, what do you mean by G of f? G of f, it's a function of f, right? It will have f in it, right, as its variable, right? So now G of t, it's Fourier transform of G of f. So what will be the Fourier transform of capital G of t, right? So capital G of t means this capital G of f was a function of frequency, right? In that, if you replace f with t, so that will become a function in time, right? So it will become a time domain function. So then its Fourier transform will be equal to G of minus f. So then if you have to get Fourier transform of this g, capital G of t, what you should do is you take this small g of t, in that t you replace with actually what, minus f, right? In that t you replace with minus f. That is actually duality property. So we'll see the duality property whenever we are proving the sampling theorem. So that is another aspect. And the last topic of this video would be, you should be familiar with the Fourier transform of periodic signal. Why? Because, right, if you see, right, we have seen the g of delta of t, the ideal instantaneous, ideal sampled version of g of t. We have represented it as sum of n from minus infinity to infinity g of n ts times del of t minus n ts, right? So we have to take Fourier transform of this, right? So we have to take Fourier transformers. This is actually what infinite uh, sum of infinite number of terms, right? So that is g of, if you have to substitute n equal to minus infinity to plus infinity, right? And you will get sum of infinite number of terms. You can straight away take Fourier transform of this, right? What will happen if we straight away take Fourier transform of this? We'll just try, right? If you take straight away, if you take Fourier transform of this, sorry, right. So this Fourier transform of g delta of t will be capital G delta of f, right? It will be equal to, on both sides, if you are take Fourier transform on both sides, right? So what we'll get is this, as we have an infinite number g of nts, it's nothing but what, instantaneous value of some time domain function at a given time nts. So that will be a scalar, right? It will be a constant, right? So we can so then what will be the Fourier transform of this g of t minus nts? We have just seen, right, del of t minus t naught. It is the Fourier transform of del of t minus t naught is 1 into exponential of minus j 2 pi f t naught. So instead of t naught, we have here nts. So this will become g of nts times the Fourier transform of del of t minus nts will be e power minus j 2 pi f n ts. So this again, it's actually what, this expression is equivalent to what, discrete Fourier transform of the sequences g of nts, right? So n from minus infinity to infinity. From this, right, we are not, we can't easily visualize how the spectrum looks like. So if you do this, right, then again, for individual signals you will have to evaluate it. It's becoming complicated. So instead of that, right, by using duality property, right, so this right hand side, right, it looks similar to the frequency domain representation of a periodic signal. So so that's what we are going to do now, right? So if you know the idea of frequency domain representation of a periodic signal, then you will be able to appreciate this right hand side looks like, right, the g of f of some periodic signal, so that by using duality we can get the Fourier transform. So that will be more meaningful, and we'll be able to visualize the spectrum in a better way. So that's what we are planning. So the next topic which I am going to consider here is the Fourier transform of periodic signal. So those who are comfortable with the Fourier transform of periodic signal, right? I would recommend you can skip this part. You can straight away watch the next video, right? Otherwise, I highly recommend everyone to uh, pay very good attention to it so that it becomes easier. Actually, this sampling theorem, it basically is right a very important topic in our domain, electronics and communication engineering, right? So you should be very comfortable with that. That should not be what simply you should be being able to what state the sampling theorem f is greater than or equal to 2fm. It's not sufficient, right? You should uh, have a very clear idea of what actually it is, what is meant by aliasing, right? How can you reconstruct it? All those aspects, if you know, that would be really great. Yeah. So the next topic is Fourier transform of periodic signal, right? Fourier transform of periodic, right? So normally you have studied, right? So the Fourier transformability, right? Fourier transform, it's defined for actually what energy signals. So energy signals in the sense, almost all periodic signals are actually what power signals. If you find the energy of a periodic signal, right, which means it spans from minus infinity to plus infinity, right? So if you are trying to find its energy will be infinity, right? But you can find the power of, so almost all periodic signals are power signals. So normally we won't define actually what Fourier transform of periodic signal. So one typical example would be, right, a square pulse train, right? A square pulse train like this, right? It's a periodic signal, right? And if you are asked to find its Fourier transform, normally we won't define the Fourier transform as such. So if I'm calling it as, say, g of t, or maybe I'll as it is periodic with respect to time t naught, I'll represent it as g t naught of t, right? So this, if we consider this is a typical periodic signal, right? So maybe this is minus t naught by 2 and this is plus t naught by 2, right? And if you are asked to find the Fourier transform of periodic signal, it's not a straightforward thing, but we know, right, we can use Fourier series, right? So maybe I'll just note down those aspects, right? So I'll just, right, please pay good attention. So by using Fourier series, what you can do is you can represent a, a periodic signal as sum of complex exponential. That is, a periodic signal can be represented as sum of complex exponential using Fourier series, right? So you have used it. We have used it actually when we were studying, right? This ring modulator, all those aspects. We have this square waves. We have represented as actually what sum of sinusoids and cosinusoids and all, right? So similarly, we can represent it as actually what sum of complex exponential, right? Any periodic signal can be represented as sum of complex exponential using Fourier series, right? So what happens is this gt of t, which is a periodic signal, it can be it becomes actually what infinite sum of complex exponential, right? So then the task becomes easy, right? So now we can define Fourier transform can be defined for complex exponential, right? So then what we can do, so we can find the Fourier transform of Fourier series of this periodic signal. So to find Fourier series of this periodic signal, initially what we'll do is we'll represent it as its Fourier series, and then we'll find the Fourier transform of the Fourier series. So that is the idea. So periodic signal, right? First we'll take Fourier series, then we'll take its Fourier transform. This is the idea, right? So which this whatever statements I told, it proves that we can represent periodic signal as in terms of Fourier transform. So now, as I told, let this gt naught of t be a periodic signal, right? let it be a periodic signal. So as an example, you can consider, you can visualize the square pulse train which I have shown there with period, right? So now complex exponential Fourier series, right? So complex exponential Fourier series of g t naught of t, this is equal to, right, summation n from minus infinity to infinity Cn, where the Cn's are nothing but what? The complex Fourier coefficients, right? So complex Fourier coefficients, you might have studied this in maths, right? And I think even in signals and system you might have studied, right? So we are just recollecting that, so that right, you will be able to appreciate whatever aspects I'm discussing under the proof of sampling theorem, right? So this into e power j 2 pi n f naught t, right? So this is what actually is Fourier series representation. That is where Cn is nothing but what? Fourier series coefficients, right? And n, right, n will, you can see n spans from minus infinity to infinity, right? And this f naught, it is nothing but what? 1 by t naught, right? That is the fundamental frequency of that particular periodic signal. F naught is the fundamental frequency of the particular periodic signal. So what this complex exponential Fourier series says is, you can represent a periodic signal as weighted sum of actually what? The harmonics, right? Weighted sum of the harmonics of fundamental frequency, right? Odd and even harmonics both, right? That is Fourier series representation, where the Cn, right, this coefficient, you might be very much familiar with these aspects, right? But again, right, I'm telling, if you're comfortable with this, you can just skip this part. Otherwise, you have to completely watch. So the Cn will be 1 by t naught integral minus t naught by 2 to t naught by 2. It need not always be actually what? Minus t naught by 2 to t naught by 2. It has to be, that signal has to be integrated over one complete period, right? That's it. So normally for mathematical convenience, we'll actually what? um, write it as minus t naught by 2 to plus t naught by 2, right? Why? Because the signal which I have considered now, it is an even signal, right? So that integration becomes easier. That's it. It need not always be minus t naught by 2 to plus t naught by 2. Please do keep in mind, it can be 0 to t naught, right? Or minus t naught to 0 or anything, right? So into gt0 of t times e power minus j 2 pi n f naught t. So dt, right? So this is the Fourier series coefficient, right? Fourier series coefficient, where this, we are integrating this gt of t over a single period. So if you see this gt of t over a single period, right? And if it becomes actually what? A rectangular pulse, right? So gt of t over a single period is actually what? A rectangular pulse. If you consider only that, right, if I'm calling that rectangular pulse as gt, so maybe I'll write mathematically, if this gt is equal to gt0 of t from minus t naught by 2 less than or equal to t2 plus t naught by 2 and 0 elsewhere, right? That becomes actually what? A finite energy signal. A rectangular pulse train, it becomes a finite energy signal. We can directly find its Fourier transform, right? Fourier transform of this will be equal to what? G of f, right? So the Fourier transform of this will be G of f, right? So from minus t naught by 2 to plus t naught by 2, I can represent this gt naught t as G of t, right? Or else I can write, right, this as actually what? A train of this rectangular pulse train, g of t, right? G of t, this is g of t shifted by an amount t naught, right? G of t shifted by an amount 2 t naught, so on and so forth, right? So I can write this gt naught of t, please do keep in mind, that is summation m from minus infinity to infinity, right? G of t minus m ts, that is g of t. This g of t, one single rectangular pulse train, right? It is repeating both for positive and negative discrete time instances 0 to that. That's how we are getting the uh, periodic signal. So I'm going to slightly modify this, right? So this gt of t from 0 to at minus t naught by 2 to t naught by 2, it is nothing but what is, you can write it as actually what, g of t, right? So that g of t is nothing but what, a one particular pulse, right? So minus t naught by 2 to t naught by 2, right? This is our g of t, right? So the cn can be written as, the cn can be written as 1 by t naught. 1 by t naught, I can also write it as actually what, f naught, not a problem, right? 1 by t naught is also f naught minus t naught by 2 to t naught by 2, or else I can write minus infinity to infinity g of t into e power minus j 2 pi n f naught t dt, right? I can even write it as 1 by t naught minus, how can I write it, right? This is the same thing, right? Now I have defined the gt of t for one period duration as g of t, right? So as g of t is 0, right, elsewhere, right, even if I integrate from minus infinity to infinity, this integral will reduce to what, this integral. So it's not a problem. But why I have written this, so this becomes actually what, the this is the expression for Fourier transform of g of t, right? This is Fourier transform of g of t, right? This is expression for Fourier transform of g of t, right? Some this 1 by t naught you just keep apart, right? It's actually what, 1 by t naught will be some constant, as t naught is a constant, 1 by t naught will be a constant. If you keep that apart, this g of t exponential of minus j 2 pi nf naught t dt, this is nothing but what, Fourier transform of g of t, right? But instead of f, what we have here is nf naught. If it was e power minus j 2 pi ft, I could have written the Fourier transform as g of f. So now instead of f, I have nf naught. I'll have to write it as actually what, g of n f naught. That's it, right? You don't have, need not have any confusion, right? So basically, what Fourier transform does is it converts from time domain to frequency domain. That is, from time domain, it will be a function of t, right? So when it is converted to frequency domain, you will get it as a function of f, right? So in the standard expression of Fourier transform, it is g of t e power minus j 2 pi ft dt. So you will get as a function of f. But instead of f, you have here nf naught. So you should get actually what, a function of nf naught. That's it. Or else, on the other, in other words, you can tell, right? G of nf naught is nothing but what, the value of g of f, right? Please listen carefully. It is nothing but value of g of f at frequency instances nf naught, right? The value of g of f at frequency instance nf naught, right? I know it will be a little bit confusing, but I request you to what, take some time and try to what, understand and appreciate this, so that, right, if you think you don't want all these things, I'm ready to what, by heart, or I'm able to what, grasp the proof of sampling theorem, that would be fine. It would be fine for me. But maybe this depth will give you more confidence, right? That's why I'm discussing this in detail, right? As it is a very important aspect as far as an electronics and communication engineer is concerned. That's it, right? So what I can write is this cn now will become actually what, 1 by t naught, or maybe instead of this I'll write 1 by t naught is nothing but what, f naught, right? So f naught, and this is actually nothing but what, Fourier transform of g of t at the frequency instance n f naught. So it is f naught into g of n f naught. This is f naught into g of nf naught. So cn is this Fourier series coefficient is this. Now we'll just move up and see, right, what we had done, right? It's right. So we have we have to represent this gt naught of t as summation Cn e power j 2 pi Fn naught of t. But we also know this gt naught of t, it is actually what? The g of t replicated at every multiples of t naught, right? So we have this as well. So we have this as well. So now I am going to slightly, like I'm going to conclude this right result here, right? So I'll just write. So what I've done is the Fourier series, right? The Fourier series of um, our periodic signal, right? So this is g t naught of t. This is equal to what? Summation m from minus infinity to infinity g of t minus m t naught, right? Where gt naught of t is periodic signal. This is actually what? For one period. G of t is for one period, right? And this by means of Fourier series representation, this is equal to what? Summation, right? Cn e power, right? It's equal to summation Cn e power j 2 pi, sorry, n f naught t, right? 2 pi n f naught t, right? And we found just now, we found the Cn is equal to what? Cn is equal to f naught into gn f naught. So I can substitute it here. This is equal to, right? F naught is a constant and it doesn't have any what? Index n. So we can take this f naught outside. So this is equal to f naught into summation. Sorry, this should be n from minus infinity to infinity should be there. So n from minus infinity to infinity. Cn, right? So this is g of n f naught times e power j 2 pi n f naught t. So this is the time domain, this Fourier series of this, right? So that is gt 0 of t is this, right? Gt 0 of t is this. So I'll just revise. What we have done is we found the right Fourier series representation of the periodic signal and found to be equal to this, right? I hope you are able to what follow this, right? So Fourier series representation of this time domain periodic signal is this. Now if I take, now I can, what I can do is I can straight away take Fourier transform. This f naught is a constant, and if you ask me what is the g n f naught, it will be nothing but what? The value of g of f, capital G of f, at the time at the frequency instance nf naught. That also will be a scalar. Then what we have here is e power j 2 pi nf naught, right? So we know, right, e power j 2 pi nf naught. So this is actually what? This is frequency shifting property. I should have mentioned that as well. So there is something called frequency shifting property now. So now we have to find Fourier transform of this, right? We have to find Fourier transform of this. Before that, I'll just tell, if you have a signal x of t and its Fourier transformers x of f. So when I am putting this bidirectional arrow, it means actually what? It's invertible. If you take Fourier transform of x of t, you will get x of f. If you take inverse Fourier transform of x of f, you will get x of t, right? That is meant by this in that bidirectional arrow, right? So now if you multiply x of t with e power j 2 pi, right, say f naught t, where this f naught is some constant frequency. In fact, it is e power plus or minus. This becomes actually what? Um, x of capital X of f minus or plus f naught, right? That is actually what? Frequency shifting property, right? So if it is e power, if you're multiplying x of t with e power plus j 2 pi f naught t, it becomes actually what? X of f minus f naught. That is right. So I'll just take a simple example. If this is x of f, right? If this is x of f minus f naught will be equal to what? X of f shifted right by an amount f naught. This is x of f minus, right? And x of f plus f naught will be x of f shifted left by an amount, right? F naught, right? So that is So this is actually what frequency shifting property. So what we have here is the gn of f naught is also a scalar. So if you consider this is actually what 1 into e power j 2 pi f naught t. So you know, right? So we'll find with this frequency shifting property, we'll try and find what is the Fourier transform of e power j 2 pi f c t. So we know the Fourier transform of 1 is equal to del of t. Fourier transform of 1 is actually what? A dc, right? That is equal to del of t. Right. Now what will be Fourier transform of 1 into e power j 2 pi n f naught t? This will be nothing but what? Del of, sorry, it should be del of f, right? I have written by mistake it as del of t. It should be del of f, right? Fourier transform should be a function of frequency. This is del of f minus n f naught, right? So Fourier transform of e power j 2 pi n f naught t will be del of f minus n f naught, right? So now what we can write is we can just write, right? So if you directly take Fourier transform of this, right, gn of f naught, it's actually what a constant. So Fourier transform of e power j 2 pi n f naught will be del of f minus n f naught, right? So as del of f, it is an even function. So del of f minus f naught, and right, so we have actually what? N from minus infinity to plus infinity. So for negative values of this n, it will become actually what? N of f plus something, and for positive values of n, it will become del of f minus something, right? So finally, we can write the Fourier transform of a periodic signal, right? Fourier transform of a periodic signal. So I'll write g of t minus m ts, right? That is summation m from minus infinity to infinity. So this is a periodic signal. Its Fourier transform, right? I'm right. Fourier transform is given by, right, f naught times summation n from minus infinity to infinity g n of f naught times del of f minus n f naught, right? So this is a very important result, right, which we'll be using in next session while proving the property of that. It's right. So it simply means this f naught is actually what? This is f naught and this is f naught. So here again it is f naught. So we can see, right, the whatever this time domain expression for the ideal sampling sample signal we have written, you can compare it with this. Maybe next class we'll discuss that in detail, but right now this is equal to what? The Fourier transform of a periodic signal where g of t was the finite energy signal which defined only one period and elsewhere it was zero, right? This is replicated, right? This is replicated. So then the Fourier transform becomes actually what? G of nf naught into del of f minus nf naught, right? Now, so this is say I write x of t and this is x of f, right? But now what will be the Fourier transform of capital X of t? That capital X of t, the Fourier transform will be x of minus f, right? This is the idea which we'll be using to what? Find the Fourier transform of the ideal sampled signal. So I'll just wind up the session here, but we'll just recollect what we have done so far, right? So initially we have in today's session we have seen the sampling theorem, the statements of sampling theorem, right? The essence of which was fs should be greater than or equal to 2w, right? Or ts should be less than or equal to 1 by 2w, right? The sampling interval should be less than or equal to 1 by 2w, whatever that, right? So then we have come up with a mathematical model. So in mathematical model we saw the instantaneous sampling process or ideal sampling process can be considered as the product between an ideal impulse train and the signal which has to be sampled, right? So then we have written the mathematical expression for that. And there is one more approach, right? One more approach to find the Fourier transform of actually what our sample signal. So what in time domain, what we are doing, we are multiplying g of t, and say if I of t is the impulse train, right, or I t naught of t is the impulse train. In time domain, we are multiplying, right? So when you convert it to frequency domain, that will become actually what convolution. That is also possible in that way. So that also I'll be discussing in next class, right? That is also one way of finding out the Fourier transform, right? But for you to visualize the spectrum and appreciate the aspects of aliasing, oversampling, undersampling, and all those things, you should be comfortable with, right, this aspects. That's why we discussed it, right? So we discussed some of the very basic properties of Fourier transform, like time shifting property, frequency shifting property, duality property, and we even saw, right, how to obtain the Fourier transform of a periodic signal, right? That is a periodic signal. It's not a finite energy signal, it's a power signal. So but we can write it as actually what replica of a finite energy signal, right, at every time period, right, t, multiples of t, right? So then we can represent it as actually what Fourier series, a complex Fourier series, right? And complex Fourier series, we then further found the Fourier transform of that. That's what we got here, right? So this is the result, right? So now in next class, what we'll do is we'll straight away prove the sampling theorem, and we'll move ahead with the um, proof and the further baseband techniques for this baseband signaling techniques, right? So that's it. So for today's session, that's it. So if someone was thinking you're comfortable with, right, the Fourier series part and Fourier transform part, right, please feel free to skip the last part, right? That's it. Thank you.